Hey, it's Jay Delsing, and you're watching and listening to the Knuckleball Prime Time.
Hi, and welcome to the Knuckleball Primetime, live from the Barn Studio. You got the Mox here, and I'm joined via Zoom right now with St. Louis golfing icon Jay Delsing. Jay, how are you today?
I'm good, my brother. What's happening? Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
PGA professional, radio host, St. Louis golf ambassador, and now an author. And I definitely want to talk about that. You have a new book out. Actually, let's jump right into it. You wouldn't believe me if I told you is your new book. It's available on Amazon and other places as well. This is many years in the making, right? Because it tells your whole story. It kind of goes back a long ways and tells you, you coming up in the golfing world and all that. So how did this come about?
Well, it's really just a group of really fun stories that talks about what a cool game golf is. And I grew up as a caddy up in North St. Louis County, kind of where the hillbillies are from. And golf wasn't really on the radar for most of my friends and things like that. So I wound up caddying and getting involved in the game. And man, the game has given me so much. It just started giving when I was a kid, and it hasn't stopped yet. And so it's, I don't know if you remember, but there used to be these stories when you were younger where there'd be like an example of four things, and one of them didn't belong. Like you'd be a kid, and your parents were like, okay, which one of these doesn't belong? You got like an elephant, a zebra, a lion, and a chair or something. Well, I'm the chair in all these stories because I'm because of the game. I wind up finding myself with these just super cool celebrities, presidents, or whomever, and I'm like, what's Jay Delsing doing with these guys? And so most of the stories are really fun. Some of them, or there's some stuff in there about my dad and his death and how important that was to me in my life and things like that. My little brother and family and stuff like that. But the book opens up with me being out in LA. I got a golf scholarship to UCLA, and my parents, this is how the world's changed, bro. Back in 1979, my parents take me to the St. Louis airport. They kiss me goodbye and send me to LA. I don't know one person there. I got all the stuff that I own in a little bitty suitcase in a golf bag. And I go to LAX, which I don't know if you've ever been to LAX, but it's a terrifying airport anyway. And I'm waiting there for some stranger to pick me up. And this dude picks me up, throws me in his car. And, today he could be in Tijuana in no time, be doing something you shouldn't be doing. He takes me and drops me off in this, I don't know, multi-million-dollar house that used to belong to Lana Turner. And he hands me the keys and he says, "This is where you're staying." And I'm like, there's got to be some sort of mistake. I figured I was going to the dorm. She's like, "Nope, this is where you're going." There's a little instruction thing there. So I open up and I'm just kind of follow the instructions. And I'm like, what is going on? But it was on the 9th tee at Bel-Air Country Club. And today that house is for sale for like 30 million bucks. But I grew up in a 800 square foot house with one bathroom and 5 siblings. I'm like, what am I doing out here? So I got to play golf with Sean Connery about 2 weeks later. That was like a joke because in 1979, he is the coolest movie star, male movie star that I could think of, at least in my mind. And so there's some fun stories how I'm following him around like a little puppy playing 9 holes. And, I'm 18 years old and I don't even have enough life experiences to know what questions to ask him. I'm just like, is it cool living in LA? He's like, no, actually, I hate it. And all this other stuff. And we're walking up the 9th fairway and it's getting dark out and we're probably 4 or 5 feet apart. And I said, man, I think we should play the back 9. And he's like, well, I'm really having a hard time seeing my ball now. I don't know how we can play more golf. And I said, yeah, me either, but I don't want this day to end. And he goes, well, why don't you come in and have a beer with me? And like, remember, I'm 18. I'm like, I'm in, having a beer with Sean Connery. So you go through the Bel-Air Country Club is one of the coolest places you'd ever seen in your life. There's tunnels and all this stuff. And again, I grew up as a caddy, so I go in more of the back door of places. And he takes me and we go through this tunnel into this elevator. This is all part of the golf course. And he tells me what to do. Set your clubs over here. We're going over to the men's grill. That's over here. And so I'm just doing whatever Sean Connery says, like anybody would. He runs into a couple buddies and I shake their hand and yes, sir, no, sir, the polite things. But I'm like, dude, hurry this conversation up so I can go have a beer with Sean Connery, And he says goodbye, and I say, nice to meet you. We walk around the corner, and he stops me and he goes, those two guys are really creative. You may want to remember who they are in the movie industry. They're really going to be something. And it was Steven Spielberg and George Lucas.
Wow.
And bro, I'm 18 again, hillbilly from St. Louis, and like, okay, but that didn't mean anything to me at the time because none of those big movies had been out. So I went and got to have two beers with Sean Connery, and man, it was and golf just kind of keeps providing that way for me. I know I'm just yapping here rapid fire, but it was really kind of fun.
Well, I think that's such an interesting part of your story is that you're a Midwestern guy and then you go out to UCLA and it's just this whole different world. It almost reminds me of Guns N' Roses' Welcome to the Jungle. He gets where you get off the bus and it's this, Midwestern guy and just in the jungle,
Yeah,
and having all these experiences. But one of the things that you said, I want to quote you here, and I love this. I'm a girl dad. I have three daughters, so I know
I
the
know.
well. You said, I love my daughters and I missed out on a lot of things when they were younger. And I thought this book might be a nice way for them to see why I was gone so much. And, I experienced that as well as Daddy, why are you going to work again? Why are you gone so much? And we're trying to provide and we're trying to give them a life. But I love that was some of the motivation behind the book.
Yeah, right on. I mean, your daughters would probably say the same thing. I can remember, packing my stuff and getting on an airplane and like, Dad, we've got it. We figured it out. You don't have to go work anymore. We're just going to open up this lemonade stand and you can support us through that. And I'm like, that's a great idea. It's not going to work, but so yeah. And I FedEx. So my daughters live all across the country, one in LA, one in New York, one in Alabama, and the last one in Indiana. So I FedExed them all this book, and then we opened it together. And it didn't really have the impact that they're like, oh, Dad, that's cool. You wrote a book, and we just kind of went on. And I was like, no, it's really kind of for you. And, it didn't exactly work the way I was hoping, but the intention was good.
Upcoming in a couple weeks, the Stifel Charity Classic, September 4th through the 7th. And I know you were a big part of that, even kicking off a few years ago, like what, 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
And you're an ambassador for that tournament. And I think it's just such an awesome thing to have, golf being on the spotlight in St. Louis because St. Louis Card. It's a baseball town. It's a hockey
Yeah,
town, right?
right on.
But St. Louis has a rich history of golf. And specifically, Norwood Hills was hosted the PGA Championship back in 1940, where 48, I guess, where the Stifel Charity Classic is going to be. So what did that mean to you? I guess getting golf back on the landscape of St. Louis sports.
Oh, it means everything to me. I mean, I'm a golf nerd, a golf geek, and so in order to have this tournament at Norwood Hills, where I grew up caddying, and then having all the money we've raised a little shy of $4 million so far in our first 4 years, but all that money is staying local, and that is the community that I grew up in. And I don't know how often you get to St. Louis, but that North County area, man, it needs help, and so it's just a great feeling for me to be involved in something so cool and get to play in the tournament. Yeah, so Stifel's a great sponsor, and Ascension's the one that started it all. And so, just to be able to keep St. Louis in the kind of the golf eye of the nation and the community and stuff like that, and then also raising money for those in need that need it through it. It's a but in baseball terms, man, it's a grand slam. Golf's never going to catch up to the Cardinals, but it's still cool and it's still a neat option.
St. Louis is a good sports town. Maybe that's a better way to reframe it, right? Because
Yeah.
I even heard, Tiger talk about one of his most fondest memories in his professional career was at Belle Reve
Yeah.
and seeing the crowd response. He puts that, and he's done it all, right? But he put St. Louis as one of his top, like memorable moments of his career. And I think that says a lot about the community, the city, and how we feel about golf and sports in general.
No, spot on. Amen to that. I mean, St. Louis outkicks its coverage in terms of supporting sports for its size because I think we're like the 24th size market right now. But man, our corporate community gets so involved. If you come up to Norwood and watch the the Champions Tour players play, you're going to see more skyboxes and more corporate hospitality than any, probably a top 5 tournament on the Champions Tour, because the Champions Tour just doesn't get the same sort of support like the PGA Tour does. But man, you don't want to tell the businesses in St. Louis like that, because they don't believe it. They just support it. I think we had 63 skyboxes last year. And from the standpoint of being a player, it's super cool to have that. It just makes it feel bigger. It makes it feel more important. And it's so much more fun, to play in front of people instead of, it rolling out there and having 3 people stand there watching you play. It's the St. Louis does a great job in that regard.
And I've been a few times to this tournament and have absolutely enjoyed myself. One of the years we were in the 314 club. I'm not sure if they still have that.
Oh yeah.
My goodness, that's if you're a guy that doesn't do a whole lot of walking, don't want to walk the whole course, although I do enjoy that as well. But if you just kind of want to sit and take in all the things, that's something I would definitely recommend. Me and my buddy had a really good time doing that.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, because Club 314's got TVs, it's got plenty of stuff to drink, gives you lots of options, and you can just hang out. You can also, there'll be football on the TV. I remember somewhere along the line we were walking and all these people started cheering. We're like, I wonder what happened. Or like, I think Alabama scored a touchdown or something like that. We were like, so it's really cool. So the golf tournament is really just it's also a huge party. It's a way for people to get together. On Friday of the tournament week, we just announced a concert. O.A.R. is going to play a concert right there at Norwood Hills. And, oh, man, I can't wait. So it's just more attention to the game, more attention to the community, and raising money. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's really fun. I'm glad you had fun when you were up there.
Oh, we had a blast. I have some few flags around here somewhere. They're off camera, but yeah. Had an absolute blast, and you're rubbing elbows with these golfing legends. And, I remember we obviously followed John Daly one year, and like the rest of St. Louis did as well, which was a lot of fun. Barely making his tee time by, I think, maybe a minute or two. But
oh yeah, he rolled in, and then one year I think he only played like 6 holes and then went home. He's like, I had enough. You just, as you get older, you're just like, I can't handle this anymore. I don't know where my ball's going. And yeah, it's always fun to get JD in town. I got to play junior golf with him, and he's awesome. He is what you see is what you get, and he kind of brought in more like a Jack Daniels crowd to golf, which I think more the merrier. Get more people in there, and I love how honest he is, man. He doesn't make any bones about whatever he's doing. He's just going to lay it out there. Judge him if you want to, but he's not judging you. I love that.
Yeah, and you always love when your heroes are the exact thing that you think they're going to be, and he was definitely that. He was JD to the core, and he was on Happy Gilmore too. Did you get a chance to catch that?
Yeah, oh yeah. But how about that role he played there? That was easy for him, I think.
Yeah, it didn't require much. I don't think it didn't require a whole lot of acting training, I guess.
No, I mean there were so many. I don't think there's ever been a movie that's had more damn golfers in it than. And yeah, it's kind of funny. Being a nerd like I am, I like it. But anything that brings attention, to the game, I'm in on.
I'm not sure if the players list has been released yet or not, but I mean, you're rubbing elbows with the legends, right? You watched Ernie Els and Harrington and John Daly. We mentioned Rocco Mediate, Retief Houston, Furyk. All these guys that were on the main stage at one point, and then it's maybe a little bit later in their career, but it's a more relaxed version in seeing these guys play, and some of them still have a lot of game.
Oh man, they really do. And it's interesting because I had a buddy of mine say, this tournament is so cool. I was walking around and I ran into Ernie Els. I'm like, yeah, it's a much more, like you said, laid back. And he goes, no, I literally ran into him. He was turning the corner, and and he is a mountain of a man. I said, yeah, he's a big boy. And we're going to, hopefully Padraig Harrington can come back. He won the tournament 2 years ago. Steve Stricker will be around. And who else is playing well out there? Stephen Alker has had some great years. But the neatest thing is that because of the environment, you'll be able to get close, You can even talk to the players. And here's something that's kind of cool to think about. Tiger turns 50 in December, and he just tore his Achilles. Man, his body is completely hosed. I mean, it is. So this tour may be his only option. And like you said, he's got really fond memories of St. Louis. If this dude shows up next year, cancel Christmas, man. We're going to need more security. We won't have enough tickets printed. We'll have 100,000 people at Norwood every day. And I hope it happens. It would be great for the community to get to watch him play again.
You mentioned your time caddying at Norwood. I imagine you know the course well. Do you still have the record? Was it a 64 at one point?
I did up until Steve. Well, I have so there was an old course that I shot the 64 on. Then, oh gosh, Steve Flesh shot 62 a couple years ago. So that record is toast. But I had it for a while. I knew as soon as we signed up a tournament to come in here, I'm like, oh boy, that thing's going to be gone. That's going to be long gone.
Also, Golf with Jay Delsing, 101 ESPN, Sundays, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 10 p.m. That'd be a long one, wouldn't it? 10 a.m. with Dan McLaughlin, another obviously St. Louis, and broadcasting hero. Just talk logistics about that. When do you guys record that? When, how do you book your guests? All those kinds of things that maybe a guy like me that's in sort of this world would like to know.
Yeah, so our show is taped, and we run. I have a national show that's in 50 markets and has 64 affiliates, and that's an hour show. And you'll tape that. We usually do our taping Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, depending on the schedule. Then we're trying to work a lot of stuff around our guests, because I go out and just try to look up the guests myself. It's a slog, man. It's not easy to do, but. Gosh, we've had some great guests. We had Wayne Gretzky and Jack and Barbara Nicklaus on the show, and Jim Nance and Faraday. We've had a lot of great people. The neat thing that we do, if you can't listen from 8 to 10 locally, is that we drop it as a podcast. So anywhere that you go to find your podcast, you can listen to the show. We're also on Scoops with Danny Mac. His media network is really super cool because it's got great Cardinals information on it. Blues information, Mizzou sports and high school sports, and a little bit of golf sprinkled in there. So, yeah, so that's really what we do. But we're like I was a one-man band until Danny joined me, and having a cat that's got 4 Emmys, that doesn't suck. And he's just a great guy, and I've learned so much from him. And so we basically will tape Monday or Tuesday if we can, just to try to get it so that we can edit it and then get it distributed and things like that. But I tell people, if you go to church on Sunday and you don't fall asleep at early church, just tune into us for 2 hours of golf. We're like an Ambien, man. We're going to put you right out.
It's a great show. You recently had Colt Knost on, which I think is a great, talk about a personality. And you got to mention on there that, he's sort of in the circle of the players, but never crosses the line with what he's reporting. He can sort of keep those two worlds separate, which isn't always easy, but he does such a great job of one, giving the information, but also being entertaining and putting it out there in a way that is entertaining.
Oh, Chad, he does. You're right. And he does. And he also knows the game because he was a great player. So it's not easy. I used to do that for Fox for 5 years. And I wasn't very good at it. You're walking around and you're trying to describe something because you have a television set. You can see what they can see, but you're trying to add something for the viewers. And you only have, 5-8 seconds. You got to get in and out. And Colt does a great job. I think Dottie Pepper does a really good job of that too. So yeah, it's really fun. We're doing an interview later in the week with Kevin Kisner. So we're going to get Kiz on the show, talk a little bit of what it's like being in Johnny Miller's old chair up there, man. That's got to be weird.
Yeah, he's doing a good job though. Talk about an entertaining personality. My goodness.
Yeah, what's also cool about Kiz is he just lays it out there, and it's not necessarily polished. It's not. It's kind of the way you and I talk. There's a little Spanglish broken in there and some other stuff, but that's the way everybody lives. I think I really like what he brings to the shows.
We'll let you get out of here. We're taking up too much of your time. Got one last question for you. What do you think of the state of golf right now? Obviously, there's a lot of the LIV and the PGA drama and kind of madness in the world, and what golfers are going to be able to play in what tournaments? What do you think about the state of golf right now? And do you see a future where maybe things get better?
Well, that's a great question. And again, thanks for having me on. I'm just so glad that we're not talking about money anymore. All we talked about, listen, the boys are making a pile and good for them. And the guys that went to live, listen, you have three daughters. If some cat called you on the telephone and said, hey, we're going to give you $100 million and be like, I'm gone. I'm gone. But
The
I'm
work,
going to come back and try to sue the tour. And I wouldn't. So, we're in a better place. I think the PGA Tour itself um, probably questioned whether or not they needed to kind of get into that framework agreement with the Saudis because now they've got so much money from some other, investment entities that I don't think they really need the Saudis. I don't know what's going to happen with Liv, but I can tell you right now, no time soon are those guys going to be welcome back on the PGA Tour. All the other guys passed up on so much money. I mean, I was just texting with Gary um, Woodland this morning, and I know for a fact that Gary passed up a pile of Liv money. And um, how are you going to make that right? If John Rahm took $560 million and Rory passed up 750, and those numbers make no sense to me. But how are you going to make that make any sense for them coming back? I mean, it's going to be a while, man. I just don't see it. What I'm wondering is how long do the Saudis keep going? Because I watch golf, and again, I'm a geek and a nerd. That's a bad show. It's just not, it's not great. And I think otherwise, the rest of the game is in great stead, man. There are more people playing golf. You have places like Top Golf, you have sim leagues, you got Putt Shack, Pop Stroke, the Tiger started. There's all sorts of crazy ways to get your golf on now. And they're finally making it fun, throw in some music, give somebody a cocktail, and let them just relax and hit something. I mean, that's what we want to do, So our other measurables are off the charts. The men's game has been jacked up for a while. I feel like we're in some smoother water right now. The Saudis could change it tomorrow by poaching another player and offering stupid money that some guy can't turn down. But I don't know if they're going to do that or not because a lot of these old contracts on Liv are now coming due, so they're not going to re-up Phil Mickelson for 200 million. I can tell you that right now. So it's going to be interesting when that contract runs out, what happens?
Yeah, and I agree with you. Watching it on TV, one, it's confusing. The format is confusing. Just even the graphics, you're like, what? Who is where? And
Yeah, no, I mean, and I'm in the weeds on that. I'm like, wait a minute, what are we doing?
yeah, and it's hard to find, so, but I will say this, I have been to two live tournaments and, if you're able to put the ethics aside, which is a whole different conversation in itself, talk about a good time. I mean, it was golf on, a guy's golf, like a guy that wants to drink a cocktail and get a little rowdy and have fun doing it. But there was also, the family, which most tournaments have, like a family area. So I didn't feel, taking my daughters, I didn't feel like it wasn't, something they couldn't attend.
Inappropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
they
almost
do a
like a
good job.
barstool league or
Yeah.
something, where they're like, well, no, we'll just do that. We know that's a little off color for golf, but it doesn't cross any lines.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Appreciate your time today, Jay. This is Knuckleball Prime Time, Stifel Charity Classic, September 4th through the 7th. We're going to be there, and you got the new book out. You wouldn't believe me if I told you with the foreword by Jack Nicklaus, which is amazing. Golf with Jay Delsing, 101 ESPN, Sundays, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., 10 a.m. My notes here messed me up. With Danny Mack, jdelsinggolf.com. Thanks so much for your time today.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on. Good luck.